The Galactic Summit was held on the rotating citadel of Valkaran, a diplomatic hub orbiting the neutral moon of Dreshel. Leaders, commanders, and scientists from across the known galaxy gathered beneath its polished dome. Today's event wasn't about politics or peace, it was about pride. Specifically, 5 races, 5 warships, and the arrogant swagger of supremacy. They called it the Fleet Showdown, a chance to present the galaxy's finest military vessels. Earth had been invited as a courtesy, more of a joke, really. A newcomer species barely a century into interstellar travel. No one expected anything impressive from the humans. The 5 commanders stood at the center stage, a towering insectoid from the Zalkari Dominion, a sleek-furred and serpentine noble from the Thalen Ascendancy, a brutish and heavily armored Thraxian war chief, a crystalline being from the Ophryi Shard worlds, and a gleaming biosynthetic from the Unity Core. Each represented the best warcraft their civilizations could forge, and they all looked at the human delegate like he was a janitor who had wandered into a royal banquet. Commander Jason Reeves stood quietly, hands clasped behind his back, the Earth emblem shining on the left breast of his crisp uniform. No medals, no fanfare, just patience, a calm, unreadable stare that held no fear, only observation. The Zalkari was first, a 12-foot-tall, 6-limbed warrior named Vrecht. He clicked his mandibles and flexed chitin-plated arms. Our vessel, the Talon of Voke, is equipped with triple-phase plasma cores and a hull capable of withstanding a neutron bombardment. Its wing array allows for near-instantaneous orbital repositioning. No other species has dared challenge us in open space. We don't conquer, we hunt. The holo display behind him showed the Talon, sleek and jagged, flanked by countless drones. It cut through enemy formations like a razor through silk. The audience applauded. Next was the Thalen. High Commander Svanny spoke with a purring lilt. The Veluan Grace is a marvel of precision. Our stealth systems allow undetectable strikes within enemy strongholds. Our beam lances can pierce subcore reactors. You cannot fight what you cannot see. The image that followed showed the Veluan Grace vanishing into space, firing elegant ribbons of violet energy that crippled massive cruisers in seconds. More applause. Then came the Thraxian, growling through his translator. We built the Fist of Karag with one goal: break every bone in your fleet. 15 forward-mounted kinetic lances. Armor thicker than planetary crust. She doesn't dance. She devours. The audience winced as the footage showed the Fist literally ramming another capital ship in half. The Ophryi hovered forward next. Their voice echoed in crystalline tones. The Shardlight Sovereign wields star-laced ion spears and lightfold drive manipulation. It is not a ship. It is a storm given shape. Their display showed the ship splitting into shards and reforming, dodging attacks in impossible formations. Finally, the Unity Core. Their representative shimmered with photonic nerves. Harmony's Edge is fully AI-operated, capable of executing 7 million attack patterns per second. It learns as it fights. Every loss makes it smarter. You don't beat it. You survive it, if you're lucky. Each ship, unique. Deadly. Beautiful. Their creators stood tall, smug, and certain. And then, all eyes turned to Jason. He walked forward without theatrics. The spotlight hit his face. There was no visible command rank. No swagger. Earth's vessel is called the Horizon Breaker, he said plainly. Silence. No holo display, the Thalen asked with mock surprise. No, Jason said. Just a window. He tapped a control. Outside, the Citadel's atmospheric shield dimmed. The stars brightened. Then space twisted. No, space shattered. Something massive decloaked above Dreshel's orbit. The darkness of it swallowed the starlight. Not sleek like the others. Not elegant. It looked like a floating continent forged from rage and steel. A few delegates gasped. One dropped a data slate. Jason spoke softly. We didn't build it to impress. We built it to end wars. Where are its weapons? The Thraxian barked. Jason didn't look at him. Where they need to be. Energy core signatures? The Unity AI scanned in real time. Impossible. That ship could power a small star cluster. Still, Jason said nothing. The Ophryi's voice rang out. That cannot be real. It's ancient in design. Ugly. Obsolete. Jason finally turned, just slightly, to face them. We designed it using principles from our world wars. From our Cold War. From every mistake we ever made. We asked a simple question: what would we need to stop ourselves? The room fell silent again. And that's what we built. The Horizon Breaker rotated slowly in orbit. No shining banners. No ceremonial flair. Just raw function. A silent beast built not for parades, but for the end of things. Is it a bluff? One delegate whispered. Try it and see, Jason said calmly. We didn't bring it to attack anyone. Just to remind you what we're capable of when we're quiet. Then he turned back toward his seat. No applause. Just awe, fear, and something worse, *respect star. The silence following Earth's demonstration didn't fade. It settled, like a dust cloud after a detonation. Days passed. The fleet showdown ended, but the aftershocks echoed through command chambers and war councils across the galaxy. Each of the 5 alien commanders returned to their warships with a poisoned thought. What have we done by underestimating them? High Commander Svanny of the Thalen Ascendancy stood inside her ship's tactical chamber, tail swaying with uncharacteristic agitation. The Veluan Grace had always been the crown jewel of their fleet. But now, even her shimmering hull felt inadequate. Commander, her second-in-command, a tall male named Jorel, approached. We have examined every data burst and scan we could obtain of the Horizon Breaker. It defies every known standard. No crew count. No biosignatures. Its hull materials don't match any cataloged alloys. Then what is it? Svanny asked, voice tight. A monster, Jorel whispered. On the other side of the galaxy, the Thraxian war chief Carrick stood before the assembled war council of Thraxis Prime. He slammed a gauntlet onto the table, cracking the metal. Cowards, he roared. We should have tested it in combat. That human dared insult our honor by saying nothing. But the ship, growled another general. It appeared without energy distortion. We couldn't even detect it until it wanted us to. A trick. Smoke and mirrors. Carrick spat. Still, he hadn't slept since seeing it. The sheer presence of the Horizon Breaker haunted him. Even the fist of Carrick, his pride, his masterpiece, felt like a child's toy now. Meanwhile, aboard the Shardlight Sovereign, the Offeri delegation performed communion in the ship's central crystal core, attempting to decipher the human technology through psionic resonance. Nothing came back. No frequency. No rhythm. Only the cold impression of stillness. As if the ship didn't exist in the same reality. That ship is a contradiction, one of the elders whispered. To fly something like that, to cloak that much mass, it would require physics to beg. They didn't build it to move through space, another responded. They built space to move around it. The room darkened as the council reached consensus. Earth had evolved faster than anyone thought possible. Too fast. In Unity Core's central archive, Harmony's Edge ran probability models. The AI processed every engagement scenario, simulating combat against the Horizon Breaker. Out of 10 million battles, victory 0. Survivability 0.02%. Recommendation: avoid engagement at all costs. The machine mind paused, then did something it hadn't done in centuries. It sent a message to Earth. A simple inquiry. Why build such a thing? Jason Reeve sat in Earth's orbital station Erebus Watch, eyes on the stars. He received the message and typed only 2 words in reply. Just in case. The human delegation hadn't returned to Earth yet. They stayed in orbit of Dreschel, awaiting diplomatic follow-ups. One by one, alien emissaries requested private audiences with Jason Reeve. First came Svanny. She entered the conference room with that same elegant composure, but her tail flicked too sharply to hide her unease. Jason, she purred. A spectacular ship. Truly. Jason offered a small smile. Appreciate that. She sat, studying him. What do you want, Jason? Why reveal the Horizon Breaker now? Jason leaned back in his chair. Because the galaxy's been flexing muscles lately. Pushing borders. Whispering about war. Earth has no interest in conquest. But we're not naive. So we showed our ace. You call that an ace? She asked, voice rising slightly. It's a supernova in a bottle. Jason's smile faded. And yet we haven't opened it. That made her go quiet. You're afraid, Jason said calmly. You all are. But fear isn't the point. Understanding is. You pushed humanity out of caution. We pushed back to remind you we're not prey. Later, Vrecht of the Zalkari made his visit. No flowery words. No ceremony. He simply looked at Jason and said, "You built that ship for revenge." Jason raised an eyebrow. Revenge. The insectoid nodded. No species makes something like that unless it was once broken. Jason looked out the observation window, voice low. "We remember our history. We tore ourselves apart more times than we can count. Nuclear fire. Biological weapons. Machines that tried to outthink us. But we always came back." Vrecht made a low clicking sound. "You build like prey that grew claws." Jason met his gaze. "We are prey. But now we bite back." The third visitor was a surprise. A single shard of the HFY Shardlight Sovereign floated in, hovering above the floor. It pulsed gently with color. "We wish to ask, what is the soul of that ship?" Jason tilted his head. "Soul. We create with harmony. The Thoraxians with rage. You with pain." Jason didn't answer for a long moment. Finally, he whispered, "With memory." The shard pulsed again. "Then it is not a ship. It is a warning." Jason nodded. "That's exactly what it is." Even the Unity AI didn't stay silent long. It projected a small avatar into the conference room, taking the form of a silver-eyed woman. "Human," it said, "your species creates weapons it prays never to use. That is illogical." Jason didn't blink. "Is surviving illogical?" The AI paused, then asked, "Would you use the Horizon Breaker against us? Would you make us?" Silence. Then the AI vanished. At last, the Thoraxian Carrig stormed into the room uninvited, slamming a fist onto the table. "Do you truly think that ship makes you invincible?" he snarled. "You hide behind it like weaklings." Jason stood, calm, but taller than he'd seemed before. Not just a diplomat, not just a soldier. A human, scarred by history, tempered by fire. "You think that's our only ship?" he asked quietly. Carrick's face went pale. "You think the Horizon Breaker is a threat?" Jason continued, voice now like cold steel. "It's a sample." Carrick stepped back. Jason walked around the table, eyes locked on him. "You wanted to measure our strength? Now you know. The only question left is whether you'll respect it." Back on the Horizon Breaker, the ship sat silent, its weapon systems asleep. But in its core, buried beneath miles of layered steel and silence, something ancient pulsed. Not just fusion reactors, not just dark matter stabilizers. Something else. Something humanity had never used. Because they never needed to. Yet, the Horizon Breaker didn't move. It didn't need to. Its mere presence had become a gravitational center of attention. Planets shifted defense budgets. Alliances paused. Piracy rates in nearby sectors dropped by 63%. Even black market traders whispered in awe, because no one really knew how that ship worked, or how many more were waiting just behind it. In the war chambers of the Thoraxian Dominion, Carrig paced like a caged beast. The council tried to calm him, but every time his mind returned to the human's words, asterisk, "You think that's our only ship?" Asterisk, he felt a primal chill. "What do we do?" one general finally asked. Asterisk, "We build faster." Asterisk, Carrig growled. "We train harder. If they made a monster, we make gods." "But can we?" another whispered. "They built something beyond us." Carrig didn't answer, because in his heart, he feared they were right. Meanwhile, in Earth's lunar military hub, commanders debated a pressing issue. What to do now that the galaxy knew? "We've exposed our advantage," said Admiral Reyes, tapping his fingers on a steel datapad. "No more bluff. Now they'll prepare." Jason Reeve nodded. "Exactly. So we do what humanity's always done best, stay 10 moves ahead." "But the Horizon Breaker is just the first," Jason said. "They think it's our endgame. Let them. The truth is, that ship was Generation 1. He tapped a secure console. A hollow formed in the air. It wasn't the Horizon Breaker. It was something sleeker, leaner, with spines that shimmered in and out of visible spectrum like it didn't fully exist in this universe. Project Eclipse. In the back halls of the HFY Collective, mystics meditated around a star crystal. "Earth changed," one said, voice like wind. "They used to look up and wonder. Now they look up and build. They walk faster than us," another whispered. "Like time bends for them. They are not children anymore." Aboard the Zalkari cruiser Gravemind's Edge, Commander Vrecht received troubling news. One of their deep space listening posts had gone silent. Not destroyed, not disabled, just gone. Sensors picked up a strange ripple in that sector. No heat signature. No debris. Just a sound. A pulse. Like something large had moved through, bending space around it. Jason stood before the Earth Council, a circle of the most powerful minds on the planet. Now that they're reacting, one elder said, "What's our counter?" Jason didn't hesitate. "We make them allies." The room buzzed. Asterisk, you want peace? Asterisk, after what they did? After the posturing, the sabotage, the threats? "I want stability," Jason said. "They feared us because they thought we were weak. Now they fear us because we aren't. That gives us a window, a moment to shape the future, before some idiot decides to test us." On the outer rim, the Unity AI did what it always did, predict, and it didn't like the results. The most stable timeline now required an unlikely path, diplomatic integration with humanity. It compiled files, created projections, drafted terms of engagement. Because for the first time in centuries, Unity did not want to fight. Svanny returned to Earth orbit, not as a rival, but as a student. She toured Earth's shipyards, saw vessels in various states of construction. And what startled her wasn't their size or power, it was their efficiency. Humans didn't waste time. Their tech evolved weekly. Modularity, AI-assisted repair, self-growing armor, regenerating hull plating, ships with literal combat instincts. "You're building a fleet," she said to Jason. He nodded. "A united one. For everyone. Even after how we treated you." Jason gave a small shrug. "We've all made mistakes. But if you're willing to work together, so are we." Svanny studied him. "Some in the ascendancy won't accept this. Then they'll fall behind," Jason replied. The diplomatic wave spread. The Offrey offered to share their deep space star drive harmonics. The Zalkari shared cloaking schematics. The Thoraxians? Still reluctant. Still proud. But even they began sending observers. Engineers. Spies who slowly became curious. One of them sent a message back to Carrick. "We underestimated them. They don't just build ships. They build ideas." Weeks later, in a private test facility behind Saturn's rings, Jason stood beside the first captain of Project Eclipse. She was quiet, sharp-eyed, young. "This one's yours," Jason said. She looked at the ship, barely visible under its active stealth veil. "Does it work?" Jason smirked. "Better than the Horizon Breaker." She stared at him. "Are we still trying to scare them?" she asked. "No," Jason replied. "Now, we show them what peace looks like when you can back it up with fire." In the Galactic Archive, historians argued over a question. When did humanity truly arrive? Some said it was when the Horizon Breaker revealed itself. Others said it was when Earth shared its technology with former enemies. But most agreed on one thing. It wasn't the weapons. It was the confidence. The unshakable belief that if the galaxy came for Earth again, Earth would not run. It would rise. And this time, it wouldn't rise alone. They came not with weapons, but with curiosity. The 5 alien empires that once stood in boastful unity, flaunting their mighty fleets before humanity, now sent emissaries to Earth. Not one came in strength. Not this time. They came in humility, cloaked not in armor, but in questions. And humanity welcomed them. The Horizon Breaker now sat in orbit as more than a warship. It had become a symbol, a reminder, a promise. You are not alone in this galaxy, but you are not above us either. In the massive shipyards above Earth, alien observers watched human engineers at work. They expected chaos, inefficiency, asterisk emotion, asterisk. Instead, they saw precision. Cool, constant adaptation. Robots worked alongside humans. AI-assisted systems performed real-time calculations for material resonance and spatial distortion. Every component mattered. Every task fed a greater design. One Thoraxian, once a fleet captain, quietly whispered, "They do not build like us. They build like time itself matters to them, as if they know how little of it there is." He wasn't wrong. Jason Reeves stood at the edge of the orbital dock, a transparent shield between him and the stars. Beside him, Svanny of the Ascendancy crossed her arms. "You humans," she said, "aren't what I expected." Jason glanced at her. Is that a compliment or an insult? Both. A smile touched his lips. "We'll take it." Svanny looked out at the project underway. A massive station, too large to be called anything but a citadel. Not for war. Not for battle. For unification. "You believe peace is possible?" she asked. Jason nodded. "Yes. but only if we're ready for war. Svanny tilted her head. Strange way to build peace. No, it's the only way it survives. Deep in the Lothari Nebula, a forgotten warlord named Zelek watched the growing shift in the galactic wind. He was not amused. The humans are infecting them, he spat, slamming his talon into a star map, weakening their pride, diluting the old ways. They share technology, not dominion, his aide offered carefully. Zelek's eyes burned. Today it's technology. Tomorrow, it's values. They will make the galaxy soft. He turned toward his fleet. Ready the Iron Blight. If the galaxy forgets power, we will remind them. The attack came without warning. A human outpost near Cygnus, 44 vanished, no survivors. Then a trade convoy escorted by Thraxians was ambushed. Not by pirates. Not by rebels. By organized fleets. New players, the Earth Council wondered. Or old ghosts, Jason muttered. In the shadows of this growing peace, resistance had risen. Not from the Five Empires, but from the fringe warlords who had built their legacies on conquest, fear, division. To them, a united galaxy was death. Because in unity, there was law. And in law, no more place for monsters. Earth responded, not with the Horizon Breaker, but with Eclipse One. Sleek, silent, deadly. It slipped through space like a rumor. It didn't engage, only observed. And what it saw confirmed the worst. Zelek's forces weren't just attacking, they were rallying others. Old Dominionists, rogue AI fleets, even remnants of species thought extinct. United not by kinship, but by hate. Jason stood before the Council of Five Empires. They're not just fighting us, he said. They're fighting the idea of us. Of all of us, together. Carrig of the Thraxians leaned forward. Then let them learn what unity truly means. They formed the Accord. Humans called it the Iron Oath. One fleet, multi-species, integrated command, shared technologies. No more posturing, no more veiled threats. Just a promise. We will stand together, or we will fall apart. And when the Iron Blight swept toward the edge of galactic civilization, they didn't find fragmented defenses. They found the Vanguard fleet, Zalkari cruisers wielding human pulse torpedoes, Ascendancy ships with Offrey star drive upgrades, human gunships with cloaking fields from the Thraxian Science Division. Zelek's generals hesitated. Asterisk, they shouldn't be working together like this, asterisk. But they were. And when the Eclipse One uncloaked in the center of Zelek's formation, it delivered a single transmission. You wanted to see our real fleet? You're looking at it. Then it fired. The battle was brutal. Not because the Accord lacked firepower, but because they refused to become monsters. They disabled where they could, offered surrender, protected civilians, even enemy ones. Zelek didn't understand it. But by the time his flagship was crippled and his bridge collapsed, he finally saw the truth. They weren't weak. They were stronger than he had ever been, not because of their weapons, because they had something to fight for. In the aftermath, the galaxy didn't celebrate the fall of Zelek. It celebrated something else. The day the Five Empires no longer stood apart. The day the humans turned enemies into allies. The day a fleet of boasters watched one ship and were humbled. Because that ship wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Peace was not won in a day. Even after the fall of Zelek and the Iron Blight, the galaxy remained a place of shadows, old grudges, lurking ambitions, systems still uncertain of where they stood in this new order. But what had changed, irrevocably, was the center of gravity. And at the center stood Earth. It wasn't power that drew others anymore. It was example. Where once the five alien empires boasted of their ships, now they exchanged designs freely through the Accord's Fleet Forge initiative, born from human openness. What began with suspicion had matured into respect, even trust. Jason Reeves stood on the viewing platform of the Accord's first true shared ship, the Unity-class flagship Sol Concordia. She wasn't the biggest ship in the galaxy, but she was the most important. Offrey cloaking, Thraxian shielding, Ascendancy energy routing, Zalkari fusion-melded armor. And at her core, a Terran AI, Athena, not a weapon, a guardian. Feels strange, Svanny murmured beside him, arms crossed. After all that fighting, all that noise, silence. Jason gave a quiet chuckle. You call this silence? We're coordinating 800 systems in joint logistics and border policy. You know what I mean. He did. There was a stillness now, a calm in the air. Like the moment after a great storm, when everything is still wet, still broken in places, but the sun breaks through the clouds. That was what the galaxy was feeling, for the first time in centuries. Hope. The Unity-class ship was to be the first of 12, not to form a new empire, not to enforce tyranny, but to keep the peace. When the first ship docked at the joint orbital yard over Iosh Prime, the alien crowds didn't hiss or mock. They cheered, not for the humans alone, but for themselves, for the promise that maybe, just maybe, they had finally moved beyond endless cycles of war. One of the 5 original boastful captains, Commander Velk of the Zalkari, now served as Joint Admiral on Sol Concordia. He was older, quieter. His voice no longer rang with arrogance, but with the weight of responsibility. Jason passed him in the command corridor. Still dreaming of your own battleship being the biggest? Jason teased. Velk gave a rare, sharp grin. No, now I dream of never having to use one again. They shook hands, a gesture once alien to Velk, now second nature. The war had changed many, but peace had changed them more. Of course, not all accepted the new order. Splinters formed. Rogue captains declared independence from their empires. Smugglers resented the new galactic patrols. But none dared challenge the Accord openly, not since they had seen what humans could build. And more importantly, who humans could stand beside. Years passed. Jason retired from active duty, choosing instead to serve on Earth's delegation to the Accord Council. Svanny followed a similar path, now representing the Ascendancy not as a warrior, but as a peacemaker. Old scars remained, but so did the bonds forged in fire. Every cycle, they'd meet aboard Sol Concordia, sometimes just to talk, sometimes to argue over policy, always with mutual respect. One day, standing again on the observation deck, Jason looked at the stars and said, "I still remember the day 5 of you laughed at us." Svanny smiled softly. "And I remember the day we stopped laughing." They say the turning point of history isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper, a moment. For the galaxy, that moment was when 5 powerful aliens gathered to boast. And a lone human ship arrived, not in anger, but in warning. This is who we are. This is what we build. This is what we will use. Only if you leave us no choice. That choice had been offered once. And everything changed. Now, on every Accord world, a saying had taken root. Do not judge Earth by its silence. Its ships speak louder than words. And so the story passed into legend. Not of conquest, but of awakening. The day 5 alien empires realized the truth. It was never about having the strongest battleship. It was about knowing when not to use it.